Hello and welcome. I'm Christine from How To Books and for Potential Education and Training. I'm running some podcasts, a number of podcasts, because I'm really aware and I'm really concerned about the quality of the food that is going into the food supply chain. In my latest book, and it is the second edition of Devils in Our Food, and I've been following the progression of additives for the last 8 years. The first book, Devils in Our Food, took 5 years to research and investigate and then to publish. Since that time, I've written another book, Devils in Our Food, and it's the second edition. So I'm going to be using my notes because what I want is for you to have really good information. Sometimes I think we see something, we want to buy it, but we don't actually evaluate it, and we don't look at how and what it's going to do, because it looks nice on the outside, what it's going to do to the inside of our body and also our brain. So this is the first free tutorial, and I will then run a continuing 30-minute paid for lecture. I am a teacher and I do teach psychology, and psychology is simply another word for human behaviour. And so all of my books are about life skills, and that really excites me to be able to investigate behaviour and see what is happening and why it's happening. And sometimes when I've been working in the schools with young people and even with older adult students, sometimes you think, well, why did they do that? And often now on reflection, I can look back and think, what did they have for lunch? And is food really, if it has additives, as dangerous to the human body and the human brain as we think it is? And I actually do think it is. So I'm going to be looking at my notes, and from my research and investigation, there is a lot that's come about, and the food additive industry has grown so big. When I started writing Devils in Our Food, it was because of investigation. Now, the first Devils in Our Food, I started researching that in 2017 and didn't publish it until 2022. And that was because of the time that it took to cross-reference the information I was collecting. And all of my information is cross-referenced by other people or from other medical research papers, and that type of investigation takes an awful lot of work and a lot of time. But I've been building on that information. So Devils in Our Food, the first edition, was published in 2022, and the second edition was only published this year. So this information is new, and I hope that you get an awful lot of information and working tools. And really, psychology is about what we put inside our head and the behaviour that comes out after that knowledge has been taken in and then thought about, and then the behaviour happens. So the cross-reference research was intense, and I wanted to know why some children performed different behaviours and what they ate, and how this would actually interact with the way they were feeling. So it's really interesting because I'm saying that my research started in 2022, 2017 and were published in 2022. But really, my research started about 42 years ago when one of our children was diagnosed with diabetes type 1. He was 10 years old. And one of the things I had to learn about in a hurry was carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. And I've spoken about this so many times, but I will go into this and explain more to you. So that was really my first insight. My second insight came when I was working with counselling and working with young offenders in the UK, and it's a prison system, and the poor quality of the food that they were given to eat. And some of the young men, and they were 18 to 21, simply had no energy to do any study or commit to anything that was going to give them an end goal. And it was really very sad to see. But when I started thinking about it, I had to say, well, what is the quality of their food, the food they're eating? And really, it was all deep fried. And I happened to go to the jail early one morning because I wanted to catch the young men before class started. And I did walk into the canteen, and there wasn't an apple, a piece of fruit, a yogurt. Everything those boys were given to eat was deep fried. And the smell of the deep fried oil was really overpowering. So looking back now and my research into many areas of food, I am almost convinced that the boys were given food that was cooked in a trans fat. I can't say for sure, but I think it was from the smell, because trans fat oils in deep fried cooking don't have to be changed very regular. So it's a process of fat contamination that can be used again and again and again. So, and then I knew about carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates, and definitely the boys in the prison were getting just carbohydrate, which is a very poor quality of food. So when I looked at the bigger picture, and then I experienced one of our children coming to visit, and the regular wanting of a manufactured fruit cordial at an almost same time every day. And I didn't deliberately go out to check this. It was just a later thought, why did that child want that food at such a regular time? And so all of these three stories were coming together, and that led to the research of the first devils in our food. So I'll start with reading my tutorial notes, and this is the free tutorial that you're in. As we now know, many of the foods our ancestors ate are not the same as we are eating today. And if I can give you just one insight, excuse me, bread. Now, bread that our ancestors ate was whole bread, and it was made from grain, then it was ground, and the flour was taken, and then the bread was made. Now, in my research, the most contaminated food that we can buy is flour, and we make everything from flour, whether it's biscuits, bread, cakes. We put it in as thickeners, but the contamination that is in flour was the most obvious when we started delving into our research and the outcomes that we got. So first of all, our ancestors ate bread that was whole bread. Now, unless you're eating an organic bread, the bread that is being served up in bakers and on supermarket shelves is possibly contaminated with some sort of additive or fertilizer. So that was one of my first areas of concern. So our human race, right up until the last, say, 80 years, had a fairly healthy diet. And over thousands of years, we looked at different ways of preserving food. So we've stored fish, meat, seasonal fruits that would only be ripe in the summertime. Fats, we've stored fats, wine, vinegars, and many of the methods used in looking after our food were by salting, freezing, burying, smoking, marinating in vinegar or wine, and other drying methods. Well, we used to dry fruit, and that was one of the ways we got our Christmas cake and our Christmas puddings. But since the Second World War, our food has been tampered with, and especially in the 50s. And the first area of looking at the food and seeing what it was made of, my first area of attack, if you like, was sugar, white sugar. And it turns out that white sugar is indeed a poison. And I will go into more of that. So, and it was from possibly that point on that technology has advanced. And when I first started looking at food additives in 2017, on the Australian government website, there were just over 300 additives. Now, in one paper that I researched coming out of America, there were 10,000 food additives. But now, in a year or two, it's gone up to 15,000. Now that's going into foods like the chips we buy the children, the biscuits, cakes, breads, meats, preserved meats. And we don't know the origins of many of the additives that are being used because of cross-contamination. So it's been an acceleration of food additives over the last really 50 years. So what has happened? Colour has been one of the big things, and now we know that in America the colour is banned, but it's not banned in all countries. So additives and food scientists have the tools where they can change food colour, food shape, food taste, food appearance, and food smell. So what was once an old piece of meat can now be made to look fresh. That's an awful thing to be selling to consumers. So through technology, many of the foods we're seeing, especially some of the salamis, would have been considered unedible. But now, because they've been revived, they are made to look fresh, smell fresh, taste fresh. And but our bodies are so finely tuned of over thousands and thousands of years that our body isn't keeping up with technology. The enzymes in our guts are not changing at the speed that technology is, and this is where the mismatch is. And this is where people are becoming ill, because of the mismatch in the food ingredients and the additives in the food that they are eating. So as I move on, it's very hard after all the research I've done, and when I go around the supermarket or I go and buy some food, to actually call food, because a lot of it isn't food. Now, in the ideal world, food is meant to replenish, to give us health, to give us energy, to make us feel nice. It's comforting. Food is a comfort. But so many times we eat something and we say, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. And that's your body rejecting it. But it's happening more and more. But it's not only your body in the first instance that's telling you. There are long-term negative, drastic outcomes from eating what is really dead food in many instances. But one area of concern, I'm a grandmother and I have some beautiful grandchildren. This is not about me. This is about our children. This is about our grandchildren. If we don't give them the tools as parents and as adults to say, look, just read the labels, think about it before you buy it, because all food labelled as food is not food. So it is children's health. I'm just going to move on. I'm absolutely dedicated as a researcher and as a qualified educator, and I'm an accredited trainer. I own this responsibility to give to you. It is not about me. It's about giving to all people in all nations this information. And this is possibly my challenge. And so all of my books include life skills, and life skills help to keep us safe. But I'll give you more information on that. So I'm absolutely passionate about the work I do. Now I'm going to move on, and I did speak of sugar, and one of the things that has been seen as a necessity, and I know as a child, my mother, and I grew up in England, would always buy £2 of sugar each week, and she would actually walk from the bus stop with the sugar and the potatoes and whatever else it was for us to eat. And she would always have this £2 of sugar. Now, how we got through £2 of sugar, I have no idea. There were just 4 of us, but we did. And that wasn't just us. That was possibly every family in England, possibly every family in Australia and America. Each parent would have gone out and bought £2 of sugar or more. And when you look back at sugar, now sugar is an empty molecule, and I'll talk more about that. And it cannot escape your body, so it has to build up. So bleached sugar, white sugar, is bleached, which is done through chloride. Now the other concern is caffeine. There is not, or are not, enough plants on the world's surface to provide the volume of caffeine needed for the number of fizzy drinks, health shakes, even alcoholic drinks, to be able to provide the caffeine needed for the volume that the human race drink. So caffeine is artificial, and I will go into that. So when we start to look, well, how can these food conglomerates and these soft drink conglomerates make the products they make without the right ingredients? And quite honestly, they can't. They need food additives. And there is one saying that is, the human body does not need food additives. It is only the manufacturing and food industry and the soft drink industry that need food additives. So it's not only does food additives interfere with your body, they interfere with your brain. And a lot can be seen in the classroom, and that's where I do a lot of my research, in young people's behaviour, especially when if they have disruption at home and they're of the age where they've got hormone changes and they may be going into puberty. And just briefly, puberty can start as early as the age of 6, and some researchers have said the age of 5. So you can see how big this story is. If the food and drink we take in, including children and grandmas and granddads and aunties and uncles, if it's not compatible with the human system, then that is going to lead to negative behaviour, people getting into trouble, illness, and lots more negatives in life that people don't particularly want. So that's the first of the first tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it.